Hello everyone, I am Justice here for Judgment Gaming, and I am here to talk about some pretty big announcements that were made today in Hearthstone concerning our upcoming Year of the Raven. There's actually some pretty exciting stuff here, so it's actually kind of fitting because my first video for Passing Judgment was on some changes that were going to be made to Hearthstone, which I had some mixed feelings about, let's say. So, as I said, I think it's appropriate that our next Passing Judgment is also related to some changes in Hearthstone, but you'll notice that this video is going to have a slightly more positive vibe to it. So, I'm just going to go ahead and scroll through the announcement. I will hit each point one at a time and kind of discuss how I feel about what's coming and how it's going to impact the player base as a whole and the game. So, let's dive right into it. The most obvious thing, which obviously we know, is that in the first expansion release of 2018, will signify the start of the Year of the Raven, and at that point we will have a new standard rotation. And what that means is that Whispers of the Old Gods, One Night in Karazhan, and Mean Streets of Gadgetzan are all going to be wild only. So standard will include basic, classic, of course, and actually we'll get back to that in a minute. Journey to Ungoro, Knights of the Frozen Throne, Kobolds and Catacombs, and any expansion released in 2018. So this isn't a video about all the meta changes and all that, so I'm not really going to dive into that. This is just what's upcoming, so we know that's going to be the case. And they were kind enough to tease a little bit all three expansions. So for those of you who know a little bit more about the Warcraft lore, you can kind of take this and see if maybe you can make some sense of it and have an idea of what's coming. So, the first big announcement is the Hall of Fame. This is where cards that are normally always in standard, because they're basic or classic cards, get deemed not healthy to remain in the standard metagame forever, and then become wild only. This has happened before, of course, cards like Ragnaros the Fire Lord, Sylvanas Windrunner, etc. So, today it has been revealed that with the start of Year of the Raven, 3 cards are going to be going to the Hall of Fame. So let's talk about those a little bit. The first one was an easy prediction for me. I talked about this months ago, and that's Ice Block. I would have been legitimately shocked if this card was not one of the ones that went to the Hall of Fame. It has enabled mage decks to kind of do the same things over and over again. Even though Freeze Mage, so to speak, is no longer a thing, Ice Block has always just been in almost every mage deck ever. Even like Secret Mage right now, which is more of a tempo-y, almost aggressive deck, still is running Ice Block because it's just that good. It's basically you get to take a free turn. It's not impossible to play around, but it's a very strong effect. It has defined many of the ways in which Mage has played over the years. It's been an auto-include in almost everything lately, and especially in a slower metagame like we have right now. Again, just the ability to just almost guarantee yourself an extra turn is incredibly powerful. It is somewhat limiting to the kinds of things that Mage can be allowed to do. And also, it's just frustrating to play against when you know, well, I have the game won, except that I can't win because they have Ice Block. And, oh, look, they have another Ice Block. And, oh, look, Primordial Glyph gave them an Ice Block. It's not fun to play against. It does, as I said, limit some of the things that can happen for Mage in the future. It was an easy call, in my opinion, to Hall of Fame Ice Block. So we're going to move on to another one, which when I first saw it, I was a little bit surprised. My first reaction was, oh? But kind of reading through their description, it makes sense, and that's Coldlight Oracle. Basically, they're looking at it as just an extremely strong source of card draw that's neutral, so it's available to all classes. It enables a lot of combo decks, which, for better or worse, Team 5 seems to be pretty against. I know the player base is split on that. Some people love playing combo decks and like them being part of the game. Some people hate combo decks because they feel like, well, once you hit the combo, they just win and there's nothing they can do about it. I fall more into the former camp. I think there are some styles of combo decks that are okay, but I understand, especially for people without previous card game experience, why playing against combo decks can be frustrating. So again, it's just a very strong neutral draw, and what they're also talking about is that the downside, which is that your opponent also gets the draw, sometimes can be mitigated or even be a positive if you're burning cards out of their hand because their hand is already at max, at 10 cards before you play the Coldlight Oracle. Also, the fact that it works very well with bounce effects, returning it to your hand multiple times with things like Shadow Step, just creates gameplay that they're not super fond of. So one of our, or at least my favorite Murlocs is going to be going to the Hall of Fame. Again, it was a little surprising to me at first. As I read through it, and the more I thought about it, I get it. It is going to make playing mill decks or combo decks in Standard a little bit more difficult, at least as of right now, before we see any new cards. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I do understand the reasoning behind it, so I'm kind of okay with it. And the third and final card that will be going to the Hall of Fame is, I think, the most interesting, because it's Molten Giant. Now, the thing is that when Molten Giant goes to the Hall of Fame, they are actually reverting the nerf to its mana cost. So it originally cost 20. They nerfed it to make it cost 25 because they were tired of all the shenanigans that were happening in mostly handlock. But they just didn't like the prevalence of Molten Giant. So they nerfed it. Now that it's going to the Hall of Fame, they're rolling back that nerf. It is going back to 20 mana. So that's kind of interesting. So it does beg the question, are we going to see handlock in Wild? Interestingly, one of the most popular decks that uses Giants, which is, I guess, any class, most commonly Warlock, but any class in Wild, using Naga Sea Witch, this affects it very little, because it changes nothing about its interaction with Naga Sea Witch. It does, however, mean that, say, you're playing Warlock and you've tapped a bit, whatever, your life is getting lower. If you don't have the Sea Witch, you will be able to play the Molten Giant a little bit faster than you can currently. So it has some effect on that. But again, I think the biggest thing is for something like Handlock, which may see a resurgence in Wild. Who knows? But yeah, it's very, very interesting. This is... I could be wrong, and feel free to let me know if I am, but without doing any research off the top of my head, I think this is the first time they've done something like this. So it's very, very interesting. They're saying, Molten Giant, go to Wild, but you can go back to your unnerfed self. And this is something that I know the community has actually been asking for quite a while, specifically about Molten Giant. Undo the nerf, Hall of Fame it. And they listened. And that's exactly what they're doing. So I think that's very cool. Molten Giant really doesn't see much play in Standard anyway, right now. So Standard metagame isn't really going to miss the card, but now Wild will have something else it can play around with. So I think that's pretty cool. So overall, I think these are great choices. I know there are some cards that people were expecting or hoping to be Hall of Famed, like Leroy Jenkins or Doomguard, talking about how Blizzard Team 5 has not loved the charge mechanic, and they expected at least one of these very commonly used chargers to go to the Hall of Fame. I never really thought Doomguard was going to. I thought there was a chance Leroy might, but he is one of those cards that just enables aggressive decks, and honestly, in the type of game we have right now, that kind of finisher is somewhat important to multiple deck types. So I'm not upset that it's not getting Hall of Famed. I kind of thought there was like a 50-50 chance that it would be. I never really thought Doomguard was going to be. But there are some other cards people are looking for. As we know, Team 5 generally likes to take a lighter touch on these types of things, whether it be nerfs or removing cards or that kind of thing. So I'm not surprised that there's not a lot of cards here, but I think the most important one was Ice Block, and that is gone. And this is pretty cool for fans of Molten Giant. If they want to play some Wild, they can have their unnerfed card back. So just to be aware, just like last time with the Hall of Fame, you will get dust refund for all of these cards, and you don't have to disenchant them. You just get the free dust, which is awesome. So I know I'm personally going to be trying to make sure that I get golden copies of all these, because you do, assuming they do it the same way they did last time, you will get the dust value for whatever the highest quality is. So if you have the golden, you will get the golden dust value up to the maximum number that can be used in a deck, which in this case is 2 for all of them. So pretty cool. All right, so on to the next. It's quests, something that has been the source of a lot of discussion in the community for a long time. They have heard us to an extent. I'm not going to say this is everything that's been asked for, but it's definitely going to help. So basically, they are lowering the requirements for a lot of quests to make them faster to complete, and they're also increasing all 40 gold quests to reward 50 gold instead. And anything that rewarded 50 or more will stay the same as far as what it gives, but they're still lowering the requirements. So they gave a few examples, which is, I'm just going to read it off here. Only the Mighty before said play 20 minions that cost 5 or more and rewarded 40 gold. Now it's bringing it down from 20 to 12 minions that cost 5 or more, and it's going to be a 50 gold quest. Class Victory, which used to be win 2 games with one of 2 classes and rewarded 40 gold. Now it's going to be win 1 game with one of those 2 classes and it rewards 50 gold. One of the things that's been asked for the most is kind of like Heroes of the Storm does, which is to play a game with a certain class rather than win with it. That is not happening. But now you only have to win 1 instead of 2, so it's a little less demanding, and it gives 10 more gold than it did before. So it's an easier quest to complete, gives more gold. It's a definite improvement. It's not exactly what the community was asking for, and I definitely understand the idea behind play versus win, so that if you want to just go to casual and play a wacky deck and get your quest complete, you can. It's a little harder now compared to that, but easier than it's been because now you only have to win once instead of twice. So, improvement. So there's that. I think this is good. I think that one of the things Hearthstone has been criticized the most for is its new player experience, and one of the easiest ways to help new players is to give them more stuff. So now the reward for gold goes up, and it's easier to complete the quests, which means it is easier for new players to grind gold. This does not solve all new player problems, of course, far from it, but it is at least a positive step, and I think the community has a tendency to say, well, this didn't fix everything, therefore it sucks, and I think it's important to recognize that while there are still problems, any positive step is still a good thing, and I think this is a great thing, honestly. Again, it's not the end of the new player problems, but it is going to be really good for them and for everybody, really, whether it be new players, free-to-play players, or even players that spend some money that still need to sometimes get packs with gold or arenas with gold or whatever. This still does help a lot. So I'm definitely a big fan of them taking a look at quests and making them easier to complete and making all 40 gold quests to 50 gold. Really, really nice changes. So, in my opinion, most important thing that has been announced, or at least the thing that I am most excited about, is they are getting a feature into the game to let tournaments be run in client. Let that sink in. Finally, you can run tournaments from inside the Hearthstone client. The client is going to take care of matchmaking. It is going to take care of checking decks, which is huge, especially since even recently we've seen problems with deck lists not matching up, people not bringing quite the deck that they said they did, whether it be intentionally or accidentally, and it being up to their opponent to check and, at the time and try to catch them if they're doing something wrong, which is ridiculous. If you're playing in a tournament, your goal should be on playing. Your goal should not be on double checking to make sure your opponent didn't accidentally submit the wrong deck list or something. That should never be the player's concern. And now it won't be, because it will just be done through the client, which is incredible. That is not going to be fully done right away. They're going to have it as a beta, they're calling it, around the middle of the year. But that's not the end of it. They are going to be looking to flesh it out even more. But even just taking care of matchmaking and deck list checking is huge. So you can invite people, again, through the client. You can invite them. It does matchmaking and checks decks. It takes care of, it sounds like, just about all of the basics, all client. So you don't have to go and use, I'm guessing you don't have to go and use Battlefy or something anymore. That should be in client. And again, I'm talking about the deck checking, which is just a huge deal. That's all done in client, and they're going to be even looking to add more features on top of that later on, say through the end of this year, probably into next year. So that means that fireside gatherings, when they have their small tournaments, they can do it in client, or even larger tournaments should just be able to be run through this now. So that is a huge step for Hearthstone, both in terms of its overall esports scene and in terms of supporting fireside gatherings, because that's something they've talked about a lot, is the social aspect of the game, being able to meet up with other players in real life. And now, once this launches, it's going to be so much easier for innkeepers to organize tournaments. I think you'll start seeing more fireside gatherings or more tournaments at the fireside gatherings, because it's going to be so much easier to do with such fewer headaches for the organizers, when they don't have to use third-party sites to do matchmaking, when there's not all these issues around deck lists and checking them, and it's just all done for you. I think that's really going to encourage a lot of people, as I said, to either start fireside gatherings or to incorporate more tournaments into the ones they're already running. So I think that is absolutely one of the biggest things that Blizzard can do. It's something that I personally have been talking about for a long time, something that I want to see incorporated into Hearthstone. So this is, I cannot state enough just how excited I am for this feature and how important I think it's going to be for the long-term success of Hearthstone. And last, and I would say not least, except honestly it is the least important part, but still cool, we are finally going to get a new Druid alternate hero. It is going to be Lunara. Now, I have personally not really played World of Warcraft, so I am not up to date on the lore, but apparently she is the daughter of the demigod Cenarius, who is already in the game as a card. So all you're going to have to do is win 10 games of standard Hearthstone once she's in the game. Either ranked or casual, doesn't matter, and she will automatically be added to your account, so you don't need to buy her, you don't need to go super out of your way to do it, just win 10 games of standard. So that's cool. Druid is one of the few classes that has not had an alternate hero printed. Actually, if I'm thinking about it now, I think the only class that was missing an alternate hero. So there you go. If you like Lunara, she's going to be available for you soon enough. So that wraps it up. Really, I am super excited about pretty much all of this. Obviously, the tournaments and client are the thing that matters most to me. But the Hall of Fame is going to help for sure. A new standard rotation is always great. Some of the most fun people have had with this game is during the Journey to Un'Goro meta, partially because it was a great set, and partially because it was part of the start of the Year of the Mammoth, so it completely shakes up the metagame. So, the Year of the Raven is going to start with the first expansion of 2018. They are going to announce that sometime in March, which means that everyone's estimate that they're already making, which is that the first set is probably going to be in April, seems accurate. So, if you have any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you have any speculation about what the new sets are going to be based on the images that we saw, and just kind of how you feel about all of this, and let me know what you guys are most excited about. So that will do it for me. Until next time, do all that good stuff that your favorite YouTubers always tell you to do, like, share, subscribe, all that. Follow me on Twitch if you haven't already, on Twitter. All the social media is on the screen in front of you. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time.